welcome to the CTF Underground Podcast, CTF all that. Now your host, my boy, from the hood, Alb, and Money and the Lose. Let's go. Goal, 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 goal. Hola y bienvenido al Barca Subterráneo. They capture the flag. Todo CTF todo el tiempo. Démosle la bienvenida a sus anfitriones, Alberto y Angelos.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of CTF Underground. My name's Alb, and hosting with me once again, we have Kelby. How's it going, brother?
Yo, good. Happy to be here. Thanks, man.
All right, so just a disclaimer to everyone listening right now. Both of us have a little cold that we're battling, so if volumes or comms are not the best on the sound, that's why. But yeah, nonetheless, we're here. We're bringing you guys this content again, and what we have for you today is basically a breakdown of what happened Week 1 in CTFDL Season 2, and then we're going to talk about a couple things that we've seen and that we'd probably like to see coming up, and then we'll go through the match schedule with you guys for the following week. So to start out, we're going to review basically everything that happened throughout Week 1 in the matches. We had 3 matches for anyone who's not following the draft league. We had Scissors versus Pizza Rats, which Pizza Rats took it 42 minutes, and it had an OT. We had Scissors versus Cuck, followed that right up after the first match. So Scissors played 2 matches in a row, and they came out with a victory in that one in 25 minutes, so no OT. And then we had Leedies versus Raccoons, and Raccoons won that one in 84 minutes, and that one also went to OT. That was the longest match in any draft league history, I guess, in the 2 seasons so far. So we'll touch base on that one a little bit later as well. So we'll start off by talking about Scissors versus Pizza Rats first. So Kelby, you take it away. Let us know what you've seen. Kelby got to watch the matches last night. I played in this match, so I'll talk a little bit about my first-hand experience after he's done. But Kelby, you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I did get to watch all these matches live last night. And then in addition to that, instead of working for the majority of today, I rewatched them from different points of view. We had public commentary provided by Jim. Shout out Jim. ZMN did one of them. I think DP was in there a little bit. So it was cool that the community was coming together and generating that. And I was able to consume it the next day as part of this kind of deep dive analysis. But yeah, getting right into that first game, Pizza Rats versus Running with Scissors. We kind of talked about the last week. These are 2 strong fighting teams coming in. I'm expecting some variation of power offense from both. I promise everyone I did not have insider information. It's just what I've seen in mixes and OVDs. It's funny because we talked about, the lights come on when you're in a match that means something, and it may start a little jittery. So in this match, both defenses lose an RT almost instantly. It's like the first 3 pushes, RT gone. It's the jitters from the defense. You're thinking, well, this isn't great for either squad. Is it a roster problem? Or are people just rusty? What's happening? Luckily, both teams recovered for a couple minutes. But then quickly it seemed like Pizza Rats offense got a foothold at the top of A6 that they held on to for almost the rest of the game. I mean, the Running with Scissors team kept coming home to push out. They had Chompy, this fighting, dueling legend up and coming, playing his info most of the game, trying to get his team pushed out, maybe generate a clear, or Breakdance was replacing turrets about every 90 seconds at the top of A6. But Pizza Rats were able to match the swing, and that comes into the previous leadership mentality. We talked about Newfie on previous podcasts. Like, Albert's got this knowledge of, if you're swinging, I can swing with you and keep the numbers even. So you're not pushing us out to A3. You're definitely not pushing us out to A4 and A2. They're close enough to the base that they can keep generating pressure. And a really funny segment that happened, I think a lot of people missed, was when Breakdance went to go mine at some point. I think it was Abath was the NG. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Abath has turrets set up in the caves. So poor Breakdance is trying to mine, and I'm watching him get shredded by MGs. I'm thinking, like, this is a miserable game to be Breakdance. But what I saw, just, offensive player, used to play defense, whatever, big nerd for the game. There was a major drain deficit at A6 on the defending team. They had 2 infantries and Mites and Shadow, who both play a little bit passive. They like to secure kills, not so much facilitate someone else killing. And Tyrael, he's a little bit of a passive. We see him 30k in mixes all the time. So they've got both these guys with shotguns, a heavy far in the back, and there's no drain being applied to these three P6 infantries pushing the base. So I'm just imagining, we've got Penguin out there slaughtering people. He's getting to the boxes at 600 energy. Albert's getting there with 600 energy. Smoke is getting there at 600. It's too late at that point. Like there's no damage applied. And I'm just seeing these constant pushes where they can get 3 to 4 grenades off. Instead of having this box effort, they're just way too healthy getting to the boxes. And I thought as the game went on, like, okay, someone from leadership of Scissors is going to recognize this and make the adjustment. We need to get a call here. Our engineer is not able to participate in the fights because he's binding the whole game, and we're just losing the strain battle. It didn't seem like that happened. I didn't see a call switch come out that game. Eventually, the base fell, and sure, there's things that both teams could have done differently in this game to either reestablish the base as a firm hold for the defending team or take it down faster for the attacking team. But I really thought the drain was the difference maker. And Albert, as someone who played in that match, you want to provide any insight on that or how it felt playing against it?
Yeah, so we did. I wish we got to play more 5-on-5 because it would have been like, I would have had more information to give you on it. But when we got in the captain's chat and Jesse asked for lineups, when they gave their lineup, they had it broken down into defense and offense. And when I seen it, I was like, immediately the first thing I said was, "Damn, this is a really good team. They have breakdance there. This is their A team. You know what I mean?" And I told the team, looking at this on paper, this is a solid team, so don't take them lightly. Like, let's, bring our A game. But I did say, offense, I just want to say that this defense is very passive, like exactly what you said. We should have no problem getting to that first choke. Don't take stupid damage on the way up, dodge Tyrael's AC. I honestly thought Mites was going to have Kara because we were playing a few mixes the last few days, and every time he was DMF in A7, he had, not Kara, sorry, Ka. Every time he played DMF, he had Ka in there. So, immediately I told Frank and them, he's going to have Ka, so as long as we can avoid that, avoid the AC, get to that choke, kind of healthy, we should have no problem doing ret damage and, keeping sustained pressure. But when we got in there and there was 2 SGs, I was like, damn, we're going to do some pretty good damage here. And, when we got to those boxes, Smoka would just drop anyone who tried to come out. I mean, those guys, I think we were draining them more than they were draining us when we got to those 2 SGs versus 3, right?
Yeah.
So we were, doing more drain than they were. And by the time we got up there, it was just, like you said, we were too healthy. There's no way, Tyrael could do that much damage, or they could. A couple of rep charges, and it's just, away you go doing ret damage. So, we traded RTs, like you said, and then, we just kept the pressure on them. We found it easy to stay up there, which is if they had to have a Ka, maybe it wouldn't have been that way.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, and especially in the last draft league, there was another game I remember casting at F4, and it was the same thing. The defense deployed 2 shotgun imps against a power offense, and Hearth and I are sitting on the commentary desk saying, this isn't making a lot of sense. They're coming in healthy as P6 imps. You got to get that call. And call's not normally about killing people, but it's about deterring them from taking spaces.
Yeah.
When you're running P6 and there's a stream of call coming at you, it's pushing you out of the way because you're definitely not going to stand there and eat it because that energy is so much more valuable on P6. But they didn't make the adjustment in time. Ultimately, that base fell, and it was something to see. But I do trust Axie's leadership coming out of that to make the adjustment going forward. I don't think we're going to see a double shotgun inf again with Tyrael behind it. I think they're going to find some method to get drain applied to whoever they're playing next.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe that they made that adjustment shortly after, which we'll talk about soon. But they did have infantries in spec who main Ka as well. So I know sometimes it's better to have the more skilled player in, but also at the same time, maybe it's better to have the more fitting infantry in there, or make that infantry that's in, run whatever's necessary. I know maybe Mites want it to be a killer, put up good numbers, so on and so on. I don't really know what happened there, but I don't feel like at any time when you have an offense as strong as the one that Pizza Rats has coming at you that you don't carry a Ka, and then when we were able to apply that much pressure, obviously the engineer has to go mine, so you're losing EB, then you have 2 shotguns. It kind of just ran downhill from there.
Yeah. And, shout out to Captain Axe. I brought him up in the last draft saying, this is such good value for a squad leader. This guy played another just solid game. I think maybe once he got flank cleared or something like that early on. You guys had to swing home one time or something along those effects. But I was watching A7 the majority of the game, like most folks were, as that's where all the action was. And even while summoning, 8 people at a time, because you guys are swinging so hard, he's still applying the EB around the boxes to keep them flushed out, allowing your Imps to take over. So shout out. This guy doesn't play a lot in mixes and OBDs, but he still looks really solid in the official play.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is the first time like I actually got to play with Captain X. Like I think we brought it up in a previous podcast. Like I guess I quit or I started playing PL right as he quit, and I never really got to play with him. I didn't play Draft League last season that he played, but I did get to watch him in the championship match, and he's good, man. Like the blinks, the ability to summon and keep his loads off. It's almost like he never stopped playing. He's just one of those people who he just has it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
being able
I
to
think I think it might be a little Hearthpool Hydro Troll angle because Hearth's not in the draft. I think Hearth might be playing on Axe's account, but TBD, I guess.
Someone said he was helping us out, so who knows, right?
Yeah, it's secret stuff.
But yeah,
But
it's like he never left, man. Honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I did connect with Mecca following this game, captain of the squad, the winning squad Pizza Rats. He had a couple shout outs. He talked about the late rounds from his draft playing a huge role for you guys. And you and I alluded to it in the preview for week one. Between Mountain and Sabotage, these guys are traditionally skirmish players. They don't have a ton of official league play experience. They came in and looked absolutely like they fit in. Nothing's out of place. Mountain is anchoring D6 as the call inf like you want to when you're in this long swing game.
Yeah.
And Sabo is setting up on a line for turrets. I was thinking like, oh, Mecca's going to play heavy. We'll see what it looks like. Oh, Mountain's going to play heavy. We'll see what it looks like. I never even thought going into the game that Sabotage would be in there. It looked no different than anyone else. Lining it up, taking down turrets when he had the time. So shout out to him from the captain. And then Mecca also wanted to shout out some guy named Albert for taking over initially, as I think Mecca was driving home a little late to the match or something. So Albert for getting the boys route up and ready to go and then closing it out.
Yeah, so that might have something to do with why. Like, so like Mecca's our normal low heavy, or that's who like we've been practicing with, and
Yeah.
who was like supposed to be in there during this time. He had to work, so he didn't show up to the practice pregame. He literally got in the arena as we were putting in the lineups. Like we were getting unspec'd and he logged in. So I was like, Mecca, you can do what you want here. We've been practicing with Sabo. You want to run it like that? We can. Like he's perfectly fine to play this game. I have no worries about him being in here after seeing him play in our practice, like as we were warming up. And to this point, like I haven't seen Sabo play in CTF besides one mix that he played D heavy with. I think he got like 13k bounty or something in A7. So I knew after watching him there, all right, this guy's competent enough to play heavy. He's obviously played it a few times in here. He's a top player in skirmish, so like I don't think there's any issue with him playing. And like you said, he listens very well, man. Like he's got good comms. He's always talking back. He's not like a mute on the microphone. If you ask him to do something, yeah, I got it, no sweat, no worries. And like I just told him, like when we get up there, man, you set up and you go away and we'll rep for you. Don't worry about it. Put the AC on the Reds, and man, he did it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the same from Spec. But again, congrats to Pizza Rat securing the first win of the draft. They only had the one game last night, so they'll go into week 2 undefeated.
All right, so next matchup, we got Scissors again, same squad versus Cuck. Scissors won that one in 25 minutes. Kelby, tell us what you've seen while watching that match.
Yeah, so I thought Axis' team really bounced back from the previous match, and we did talk about that last week. They've got to play the doubleheader this week. They're the only squad that played 2 matches. So they have this frustrating game against Pizza Rats to kick off the league and kick off the night where they're pretty much turtling the whole game, and then they lose the game. Now they've got to regroup a few minutes later and get into the next arena to play. But they showed up looking extremely different for the second game, and I loved seeing that. They deployed the same offense that I teased on this podcast a week ago, where you take your foot JT to clear out boxes, you have a heavy setting up on the turrets, and the 2 infantries, fighting for that minimal space around the heavy. They took it against A5, which I think is a weaker base, and I believe Cuck was kind of forced into it due to roster constraints. But I loved seeing the innovative offense. We did not get to see that offense really in the first draft league. I'm glad we got to see it officially played in this one. Beyond that, the foot JT, not only in that base, but any base where you're fighting around boxes, which in our environment in CTF, that's like every base, right?
Yeah.
There's different box chokes you can fight at. You don't need to be the most skilled dueler. You don't need to be the most knowledgeable. You just need to think, I can throw a never-ending grenade, essentially, that'll flush around a box. And Mites was able to do this so well at A5 in a lot of this gameplay. I've watched it almost 3 times. I've almost watched the full game. And just understanding the DMs want to push out and get to my heavy, denying that path with GL, which is a tiny, tiny projectile, hard to see because we're all, balding old men. But I don't know, man. I love seeing it. I hope we get to see more of it going forward. What were your thoughts on that game?
So I watched it back not long ago. It was probably your third time watching it. We watched it together there before we did the podcast. And I noticed that the same thing, like he would literally just run in, fire GL. He wasn't dueling, he wasn't doing anything out of pocket. It was just bounce GL everywhere you possibly can. He had the imps bounced all around. And when he got him in the flag room, one thing I did notice is he would take the dunker spot, so like the top spot,
Yeah.
and he was just bouncing it off that back wall. So anyone trying to run out of the flag room, it's either hitting them in a dome or it's bouncing off that back wall and just smoking them on the way back up. And if it didn't do that, it was catching turrets. So like, I wasn't a big fan of JT, like a foot JT, JT on pack, JT on board. Not a fan of it. After watching, like, seeing what it actually can do, and I'd like to see it applied to like more matches, more teams, more lineups, and seeing how it does. But after watching that match, it was super good, and not only in that base, but on 10-man, it was really good.
Oh yeah. I mean, it racked it up in 10-man. And just to, wrap the picture of this game in case anyone's not seen it yet. These guys are attacking A5 the whole game against Cuck. Cuck's offense, which they deployed at F4, was quite frankly pretty weak that game. They had Chucky in at JT most of the game. They had some lesser fighting talent, like we talked about, in front of him. It seemed like they weren't coordinated. I'm not sure what any of the comms sounded like. I was just, watching from spec, wondering what this must be like. But I kept seeing these imps going kind of one by one, push down. The other two members of the offense aren't even with them. So you never get like this big, stable push going. And I kept thinking, like, you've got to slow this offense down. If you're not doing a flag run offense, you've got to be moving as a unit. You got to move slow. And they were just way too scattered.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the comms were either, but it seemed like they just weren't jiving. Like one by one, they would run in, or they wouldn't hold a choke, or they'd push down too far while you're waiting for your last player. Playing with the JT on a pack, it's kind of its own unique type of offense, and if you haven't done it before, it's a little bit hard to pick up. You need good leadership to do it. I found they have new players in and stuff. Probably never played with a pack JT before, so it was a little bit thrown off. And it was around the 16-minute mark that Chuck changed to heavy. Once he did change to heavy, the match only lasted 25 minutes. There was a bit of 10-man, so like they didn't get much, many runs in with the heavy, but they got down to turrets. It was probably their most successful run, I'll say. Took out a couple blocker sentries, and they were getting ready to do some ret damage, and they got pushed back up. But it was definitely their most successful run on offense is when Chuck went to heavy at the 16-minute mark. So I would have liked to see maybe him do more of that, and maybe this is something on the leadership side where they need to identify, will my lineup work well with this JT? I know Chuck was their number one pick as well, so you're picking Chuck number one, you're expecting him to be on that pack, and you're expecting him to flag bases. So I guess it's on the leadership, in my opinion, at that point to identify it and then like work through it from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a fair critique. Like going into the match, you practice whatever throughout the week. But once you're under the lights, like we keep talking about, you've got to get a feeling when something's not working. And it seemed like it took them too long to identify that. They were swinging back to A5 a lot to try to counterbalance what was happening. And the opposing NG is also attacking A5 a lot because the JT offense is being ineffective at F4. It just seemed like maybe 6 or 7 minutes too long went by of nothing good happening for them. And that started out into eventually what resulted in a loss. And it was actually a bit of a fluke clear at A5 where GT, aggressive medic, he went for the flank, didn't work out. At the same time, it looked like Karatank, the remaining DMF, died. Suddenly they're clear, and then it's a 10-man panic at F4. Ultimately, on the 10-man, Scissors holds it. They get the win of the night, which personally I was happy to see because I didn't want to see this squad that a lot of people thought was so strong start off the season at 0-2. So awesome bounce back game after the frustrating game against Pizza Rats, and congrats to Scissors on that win.
Yeah, they definitely deserve to get a win. They're a very strong team, and they deserve that win in particular. They outplayed the Cuck team again. The whole match, like even their swings. I want to note that like when they cleared offense, they swung to enemy before the 10-man. Like their swings was very well coordinated. Like Terriel was there doing good damage. It was just all around it. They had great, communication, leadership throughout the whole thing. Maybe it was where Axie's on O and he's like helping them through it all. They just all together, like even their offense, for example, you see Mites was in that dunker spot, Axie was set up, they were repping for each other, they were playing with each other. I just think they had like the leadership aspect in that game. And coming off a loss the match previous, like they literally left one arena right into the other one, unspec, played again. and they came out strong, dude. So that's what I like to see personally.
Yeah. And I did get to connect with Axie, captain of Running with Scissors after this match. Started off congratulating him on the bounce back and asked him for some feedback if he wanted to share anything. And he provided plentiful comments. First person he brought up, controversial name in the community, Mites. Mites was vocal about changing the lineup following the first game. He was helpful with ideas and he prevented us from trapping ourselves into the original plan. So whatever shift they made between games 1 and 2 was spurred by Mites saying, like, hey guys, let's try something different. You love to see that, and you love the captain's willingness to try it. Like, again, we're under the lights. This counts for something. There's records being kept here, but to trust your team's experience, even Mites, who a lot of people don't get along with, like we heard this in CTFDL S2 W1. This guy wants to win. He's not trying to sabotage anyone. He's just trying to win. Beyond that, Axie mentioned that first game, obviously, we're struggling on defense. It felt really good the second game to be pushing the tempo on offense. And we've been in those games before where we're turtling all game. Then maybe there's another game where it's kind of like a halftime of that game where you just flip something. We used to go through that back in the day where we'd totally switch from a power offense to a JT offense or vice versa. It's a great feeling to turn it on the other way and be in that power position. Last, from Exodus, he brought up Dark Bomber, who captained last season. He's on his squad. Breakdance, who you mentioned, great for him to show up this time. Like to see their strong lineup. They were adjusting to different support classes between the games. Breakdance is NG game 1, Breakdance is Medic game 2. A lot of people didn't notice it, but I love to see it on the 10-man review. Breakdance keys in on Plaps right before he's going to get this last abort, lands a trank from across the screen. Otherwise, that game would have still kept going with an abort. Who knows what would have happened? But shout out to Breakdance. He's not around a lot. Great medic play in the one game he was kind of given the opportunity. Doris improved as the night went on. Again, this is from Exodus. We kind of saw it from Spec the first game. Doris did not have a lot of opportunity against Pizza Rats. The game just didn't play out in a script that fits his play. In the second game, with them being the ones applying pressure, he was able to position well enough, provide that EB to complement my GL and everything. So good to see him get some kudos. And then I love this part. We talked about spec info last week. Axis calls out Dark Prince, awesome spec info for us, provided critical information, how to stay calm and cool, lock in those targets. And finally, he just kept raving about the comms on his team between Debris and Chompy. And I've played with these guys. They're cool, calm, and collected. It's like, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something else. That's fun to play with. And we'll touch on that kind of stuff a little bit later. But again, congrats, guys. Great bounce back game. Can't wait to see you next week.
Yeah, for sure. Great game, guys. So we'll get into the third match of the night now, which is Leedies versus Raccoons. Bit of a long one. Raccoons win this one, 84 minutes in OT. So with that, all home teams win the matches last night. So I don't know if that has something to do with it or if it's the D7, powerhouse of a base. But yeah, all home teams did win. There was an F4 base taken in the Scissors versus Cuck match as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's a Titan thing, but bit of a long match. Kelby, take us through what you've seen when you watch this one.
Yeah, I'm hoping when we talk about this game, it doesn't take as long as the game did. As someone viewing this match, this was the most frustrating of the night. Like, to put it frankly, I just expected better in this match. Bonds' team was the first one to have to make a roster switch, and it was very early. So they took Sav, who said before the draft, this wasn't a secret or anything. I want to play offense. And cool. He was forced to play NG last league because of all this drama where the NG couldn't show up. He wants to play offense. That's what he's good at. He's a great offensive leader. So he starts the game on offense. By chance, he's also running that same offense I talked about Mites running the previous game. So I've got Sav attacking D6 as a foot JT backed up by a heavy and 2 imps. And I'm thinking oh man, this is it. Here's all my predictions coming true. Not exactly. I think less than 10 minutes into the game, somewhere around that mark, it's evident A7's not holding. And they've got Rue and Colossal. They do have call coming out of Colossal and Rue's the shotgun finishing it. And I'm thinking going into this game, Bonds and Tactical were so strong in the previous draft, they can kind of carry whichever imps you put in front of them. That was not the case, as Raccoons came in with just a strong plan on how to attack this. Quickly, I guess, and again, I haven't talked to the captains on this part. I don't know how this sub happened, but around that 10-minute mark, Sov switches over to call infantry. So you're taking away your best player from the offense and putting him into a complementary role on defense. The good of that, obviously, is it stabilized the defense. There's folks sitting in spec wow, they can't kill Sovereign on the boxes. It's so different. Verb must love this. Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, that offense started to stall a lot. The offense attacking D6 is it's not making progress. They're at some point running a full skirmisher lineup until ZMN came in later in the game. So game keeps going on. At one point, Leedies does break them. They get the flags out. We're going home to 10-man. We call it victory formation in American football. And again, they blow it. And this is a team that's, it's got a lot of leadership on it from Sov, the 52-time USL skirmish champion of the world. Bonds has played on good squads before back in our day. I don't know where the communication breakdown happened, but something went wrong here. Even ZMN, he's a leader on that team.
Yep.
I wish I had the comm so I could expose or, just talk about this is where I think you guys misstepped. But that 10-man did not look right. And we'll go into that a little bit later, like how that 10-man should look at A7. But ultimately, the first 10-man fails. They get flags up. They get out of the base. And I was surprised Raccoons then opted to go back to 5v5. And I think most of spec is like, what, they're going to take the flag back? They sure did, man. That game went on for what felt like forever. So we talk about games of attrition. This was the one, especially in this generation. In the previous draft league, coin flip 45-minute, whatever they call it, this game's going to end real soon. But in this one, they're not forcing it into the game. They're just choking it with these settings. And we'll touch on that a bit. But this was not a fun game to watch as someone that likes watching offenses and being like, oh, they're figuring something out here and there. It was very stalling on both sides. I will say, I thought when ZMN came into the game attacking D6, I liked what he was doing, playing the left side of that base. I'm sure it was frustrating to Decker because Z seemed to have a good feel of when to push the NG. And once he started doing that, we're seeing turrets fall at D6. Sure, it's overtime, so it's harder to heal, but I think that one person taking control of the left lane in a formation, attacking with that traditional power offense of 3 imps and a heavy, it really made a difference. And eventually, they did break them. So they break them again. They get the flags out. We're back in victory formation A7. It's time to win. Like, it's winning time right now, and it falls apart. Like, it's borderline disaster from what I'm watching. There's multiple things happening that I can see from spec. 2 critical things. I'm not going to call out names and everything. You can watch the VODs. But we're not getting the subs we need. We're not getting the position we need. It's just a lot of bad things happening. So I was disappointed. I expected more out of that game. They failed that 10-man. Ultimately, the opposing teams, the Raccoons, they get the flags out. They're making a move to a base that no one ever plays in. It takes Bonds and Soft's team way too long to get there, and the game ends. And I'm just thinking the whole time, like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
Not only, I just want to say real quick, not only is that base like no one ever plays it, but it is by far, I think, the longest base to get to, like in terms of time, especially when it's like a base outside and then you have to go through a portal to another base and they have infills out there. They get double the opportunity to hold you at chokes the whole way down. And even with a bad flag drop, it's still, they were able to hold that off longer than it took, leadies to be able to get down there. So my thoughts on this is pretty well the same as you, down to like not getting the subs they needed, not making the correct, leadership roll calls in lineups and stuff. In my opinion, ZMN should have been in that game from the start. You said, when you were talking about leadership, like you got Sav, you got Bonds, who's been playing on these squads, top tier squads forever. He knows what to do. And then you got ZMN, who is literally a squad captain for, I don't think he's ever been on a team where he wasn't a captain besides like CC and maybe Newfie for like a week. So this guy, he's got the leadership, he's got the knowledge, he's got the know-how. He should be in the game. He can play pretty well any class. I don't feel like there's a time where ZMN shouldn't be in the game, especially being your 5th round, draft pick. He should be in there in my opinion. So I don't know. I would have loved to be able to hear the comms. I know that, I'm not going to get that because I'm on a different squad and whatnot, but not for any like competitive edge. I would just love to see what happened. Like who made the calls, who allowed this to happen, who wasn't, getting the right classes in there, info on 10 men. It's just, in my opinion, that's textbook of how these games, they work. You get 10 men, you put in the infos. Last season it was, but there's too many infos being put in. But this season it's like nobody's putting the infos. What's going on here? So, it's pretty bad. You watch that for 84 minutes and it comes down to that and teams losing because they're not putting in infos. It's kind of like, oh man, what happened? And then a little bit off topic, but to make it worse, the players that were in this game for 84 minutes then go play a mix.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I've not played an 84-minute mix since we picked this game back in the summer. I don't think I have that kind of durability. Like, I'm calling 10 men at some point, we're ending this game.
Yeah, and it almost looked like that's what happened when we watched back the VOD. Like, the team at D7 Raccoons, it was like they didn't even attach back when they started getting pushed so to the point where they knew where they were going to lose the base or they had to swing. They were just like, all right, 10 men it is. Let's get out of here. This has gone on way too long at this point, and it's no sight and end. Or no end in sight, sorry. Let's just get through it and we'll go 10-man and see what happens. And I mean, it turns out to be the right call because they did get the victory. So one thing I do want to say also is in A7, there were so many ammo drops. I guess offense and defense dropping ammo for the SL and the NG. Infinite with his mines literally helped out so much, man. The D-Imps, the engineer, I think every class on the defense, and especially like when they were swinging, we're just running into these mines. Every time they pushed out, instantly just turned away. Allowing, Raccoons to be up at that top choke, just like Pizza Rats were. It's kind of uncontested at that point because you lose 3 people to mines on a push out. I mean, you got no choice but to turn around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on the other side for Raccoons, few good blinks, man. Infinite and Decker had a double blink in one run, one play.
Oh yeah.
Took out
Oh,
the
yeah.
RT. Decker grabs the flags, almost gets out. Huge plays there, in my opinion. Those were like game-changing just about, almost broke it. They took down all the Rets on those 2 blinks. So those are really big ones I'd like to point out. And, it just goes to show that support classes, they don't just have to support. You can also make, game-breaking plays with them. You could use your blinks. We pointed out Axis just holding down the EB button. And it feels like the more that we talk about and get through these matches that, the support classes are really the ones that are being pointed out more.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's they're doing their expected role, they're going above and beyond, they're underperforming. They were definitely big difference makers in the game. And this game especially, we talked about the mental attrition when you play these games. 84 minutes is a long time to essentially bang your head up against a wall. Like you take down the base, so it's kind of a shout out to Leadies for sticking in the game after the first failed 10 man. And then again, they're winning all the 5v5 series. Like they didn't lose their base to Raccoons in a 5v5 scenario. They won twice on 5-man. But we haven't given enough credit to Raccoons yet. I've called out all the things Leadies may have done wrong, but shout out to Posty's squad. These guys are down the whole game, kind of losing the 5v5, but to claw back twice in a long base like A7, take advantage of the mistakes made, like they earned that win. It wasn't given to them. So they did what they needed to do, ultimately get the flags out, win the game. So good job to them as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Did you get a chance to talk to the captains after that one?
Yeah, so I did connect with Posty for just a little bit. His comments were similar. He talked about the attrition of the game, his team fighting through it, sticking together. They had so many subs in and out of that game. It was like a circus at some point. I feel like the last 40 minutes of the game, they made 8 or 9 subs. It's like, let's get Camo out and Imp in, then Demons in and out. And it's just all these different little Imp subs. But their subs were clean. From what we could tell, they were executing what they wanted to execute. Posty talked about everyone was willing to play whatever was needed, sub at whatever time was needed, and that collective drive of everyone sacrificing maybe what they wanted to play versus what the team needed them to play inspired everyone to lock in and get that win. And we talk about the cheesy aspects of like, oh, it's teamwork versus individual effort. Man, that's a great representation of it. Huge team effort for them. He called out a Demon, who I think is newer to the CTF zone. He stepped up in multiple phases of the game. Their D stayed steady. They had SSJ Cloud, who most of us haven't seen since we were teenagers, show up out of nowhere and anchor that defense. I think he was the call imp. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, that stuff's crazy. We talk about solo camo for a second. This guy hardly gets played 4 months ago in mixes. Now he's in just about every mix that he's on the spec team for. Like if he's available to play, he's gonna play. And he's out there playing well. He's dodging RTs now. He's lining it up. So it's cool to see. And just again, Posty with shout outs to his team. Shout outs from us as well. Great job.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I did have Solo Camo in there to shout out as well. When we were watching that back, I mean, he was phenomenal. I don't know if it was like a personal matter where like he just needed a break or he had to go or whatever when they put Imp in, but I think he was doing more than an okay job playing his role, taking down turrets. I mean, he did great in my opinion. So shout out to you, Camo, and hopefully you keep up and keep playing and stuff. It's great to see, especially on our end.
Yeah, for sure. And it's tough for Imp, who, as we talk about, he's brand new to the zone. He's never played video games before. So hopefully he figures it out and he can have a better performance as the league goes on.
All right, so there you have it. There's your review of week 1 matches. Going into our next topic, before we get there, I want to ask you, Kelby, for your predictions. I know we don't do predictions here on the podcast, but your predictions for week 1. Did you hit them? Did you miss them? Tell us, where were you at with that?
Yeah, so my secret betting pool, thousands of dollars at stake. I was 2 for 3. One of the big prop bets I made was a JT heavy offense, and I kept seeing it throughout the night. So I talked before. I love seeing that from various people. At one point you guys were running it whether you meant to or not. as Smoka was shifting into JT during that adjusted offense at A6. You still had the heavy and the 2 imps.
Yep.
Alb started the game attacking D6, like I mentioned. Mites ran the entire game attacking A5 with it. So I hit on that one. That was cool. I think the spatial control of a JT is really causing problems for people. And I would keep that prediction going as we get to like further predictions in the season. I think it's going to keep being a problem until people play against it over and over. And we haven't seen those reps in the recent mixed community every night. Like it's usually power offense, or maybe it's JT info where Zeman and Chucky are out there flagging. But I think this foot JT is causing problems for people, and I think it will keep to. As far as the actual match results, though, I think I had a decent read on the first match, Pizza Rats versus Scissors. I knew the fighters matched up really well on paper, and I said as soon as one of the teams gets the upper hand, I think they'll be able to choke the other team out. And that's how it played out. Pizza Rats got the upper hand. They just choked Scissors out of that game. Second match, I hit pretty well on this one. I talked on the previous podcast about the fighter discrepancy that Cuck was experiencing. And you take Chuck, who's a JT with your first overall pick, you've got to get value out of that. We talked about the disappointing performance we saw from Cuck. The JT kind of rendered ineffective until he goes heavy. And beyond that, man, they lost their third round pick. Talking about Worth, who's a primary aggressive D infantry. That is a brutal loss in a small draft like this. So you missed with taking a fighter in your first. You chose not to. Okay, you can bounce back. But then they lose one of their top 2 fighters drafted after that. So they're really just outmanned at this point, and that was tough to watch. Like we talked about it, I couldn't identify a ton of potential there. I'm hoping they can mix it up and find different ways to make their offense effective. They do have RR. I assume shot calling. I'm not for sure on that. But Head also has that experience from last league and back in the day. He's captaining. Looked like he sat in spec for the majority, if not all of this last game. But I did kind of have that match going that way. On the other hand, I was happy to see Scissors bounce back. I didn't want them to come in with a slump after losing Pizza Rats, and I talked about that as well. The last game, I just totally missed on. I mean, on my personal prediction, I was thinking Solve's going to come out here, deploy whatever offense, and I did expect Solve to be on offense, whether JT or heavy infantry, it doesn't really matter. He's an elite player. But when they had to pull him back into defense, I was thinking, oh, this isn't what I expected, right? Like I'm expecting a power offense, not a kind of newer player skirmish offense. But even when they got the flags, I'm thinking, well, it's okay. I'm 3 for 3. We're going to lock this up. 10-man fails. Game goes on, I think what felt like 6.5 more hours. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to hit that 3 for 3. I'm the best at this. 10-man fails. I missed it. I didn't credit Posty's team enough in my prediction. But yeah, to go through that mental attrition, again, I can't shout out enough. I don't think I can play an 84-minute game. So you guys who were unspec the whole game, great job. I was wrong on this one. I thought Leedies was going to take it. So 2 for 3 after the first week.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm the same as you on predictions. 2 for 3. Again, I missed on the Leedies one as well. With the lineup they have, it is newer. It is a lot of skirmish players, people who are not, used to playing in CTF in a competitive match environment. And I know people play OVDs, they play mixes. You guys, we're playing every night, but going back to what Kelby said about turning the lights on, it's completely different when you got 85 people in an arena, 60 of them are watching you play, and, all eyes are on you. Like, people are seeing every move, every missed RG, every missed RPG. You do one thing wrong, everybody sees it. It's different, man. The nerves you get, and that's, again, well, like I said last podcast, that's why I play this game, is for those nerves. And it's different. It's just a different feeling. So maybe that had something to do with it. I know a lot of these players that are coming over from skirmish on this squad are like 20-time champions in USL and SL and stuff like that. So like they get it over there, but I don't know, man. It's different when you come to a new zone too. And for me, just bouncing back off of like a very big hiatus from infantry, like I had those nerves last night. I felt like I, was under the lights and everyone was watching everything that I was doing as well. So maybe it was a little bit of that for these guys on the 10-man, and they just didn't know what to do, where to stand. But, I mean, there's still 2 more weeks of playing left in the, season of this before the playoffs start. So, hopefully, throughout practicing and stuff like that, they can figure that stuff out. And otherwise, though, I was bang on with the other 2 predictions. And like you said, an 84-minute game, we said last podcast that we enjoy, longer games and stuff like that. But 84 minutes is pretty long, man. I know in my game, my game was 42 minutes, and I was getting antsy. Like I was like, all right, let's just end this. You know what I mean? I was making stupid mistakes because it was just long. It felt long to me. It felt like days of playing infantry when it's only 42 minutes. These guys double that. So,
Yeah.
kudos to them for keeping it like level headed and holding it down and being able to continue on.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
And I think last week when we talked about, we did enjoy playing those long games, like the stakes keep getting higher. We were talking about playing them, not spectating them.
Yeah.
Because I'm out here just trying to pull information, like all this strategy and analytical stuff that I can talk about, and it wasn't enough in this game. And one of the big contentious topics, if you guys remember following the first draft league, was the hot swaps. Like, look at all these class hot swaps that Solve's abusing. This guy's playing engineer and O-info in the same game. We didn't see any of that last night, and that kind of went into my prediction about this game. Like, Solve's going to take that just like Flair did with Care Bears, and he's going to run with it. So many opportunities where Dov or Ziaman or someone could switch to info and end this game, an hour earlier than it ended. They just didn't play out. And I don't know if there was like reason for that, just rust because I haven't played in a while, but just way different than I thought that game would go.
Yeah, I agree. And not only did we not see the hop swats, but in the case of Raccoons, they were actually switching their subs from spec. It wasn't even like a player in game changing a class to another class. They were hauling people out, putting people in. So we seen more of that than we did of hot swaps, which was, in my opinion, I didn't think we were going to see any of that.
Yeah, I hope I can land better and hit, all the predictions this week, but right now I'm batting 66.6%.
Not too bad for the first week of Draft League, too, I got to say.
Not the worst.
No, so, all right, we'll get into our next topic, which is how we're going to talk about OT, all right? So we went from sudden death to OT. How did you feel like the OT played out? How did you feel like, did you feel like it was effective? Did you think it did its job? Like, we had an 84-minute game, so did it actually go good? I know it was turned on in the Pizza Rats game, and it only lasted 42 minutes, so, like, maybe it did work, but then you get the 84-minute game, maybe it didn't work. How did you feel about it?
That's the smoothest segue, right? Like, we just sat here complaining about this long game, and it's like, how'd you feel about the overtime rules? It ended the game early. Yeah, they sure did work like 54 minutes after they came on or whatever the case, but, no, I honestly, I think it was a good deployment of the overtime. So many complaints last season from sudden death. Touched on it last week. Sudden death became a coin flip. Every team that got that flag won the game. At least in this one, it stayed fair. It reserved the game state. It just made it harder on the defenses. Now, obviously, these games didn't end immediately following sudden death. It didn't really feel like the course of the games were changing after that overtime rule initiated. And again, for a reminder, at 30 minutes, it's 50% healing reduction, 33% NG repair kit reduction. That's in current state following week one. There's ongoing discussion. Maybe we're going to up this at some level. Maybe at 45 minutes, that healing repair is getting cut in half because, yeah, an 84-minute game is brutal on people. But I think it was a good, safe deployment for week one. I liked it a lot more than I did the whole let's spawn a random flag somewhere and see who luckily runs to it. But yeah, I think it's heading in the right direction. It just didn't quite get the job done that long game last night.
Yeah, and it really never, but I guess at the end of the day, it's better than playing 45 minutes and then losing because, Ziamet knows where the flag's going to spawn, right? No matter what, it still beats that. I feel the same. I do like the idea that they're talking about, and I'm not going to say that, I told the so or whatever, but I did suggest before that, if this doesn't work, and what about if it goes, luckily it was the last match, right? Because if this was the Pizza Rat match, Scissors couldn't have played their second match, then you have the, it could have came up that, oh, well, my guys are supposed to play at this time, now they can't play at that time, and, yada, yada, but, luckily it was the last match, so it didn't really matter in that mind sense, but, what about if this really didn't work the way we expected it to work? We only got to practice it in mixes, not in, full competitive aspects like we did last night. So I don't know. I did say prior back a couple weeks that, I think we need something bigger. If you're not going to do 50% engineer heel cut with the, first overtime, maybe we add another one where it's like, okay, well, if you go X amount of time, well, we're going to cut it this much. And it kind of got shot down right away. Like, people were like, no, it's crazy. I played a mix and the engineer couldn't hold up 50%. We're not doing it. But it's like, well, if they can hold up with 33 and it's a 9-man turtle, right, it's going to go for days. So I'm glad it's being talked about now.
Yeah, I think they'll get to it probably after week 2. And again, I don't know if they're going to definitely have Axis implement a change in the next week, before Sunday's games. If they do, I trust it'll be an adequate change. It'll kind of drive this to an end. I don't think we're going to see too many iterations where it's like, here at 30 minutes, you're at this percent. At 45, it's this. At 60, it's this. I think they'll be able to knock it out with 2. Where at 30 minutes, like, this is a warning. You guys need to step up and finish the game. I think the next one's going to be like, good luck defending. And I think it'll drive to the game ending. But I trust that they're going to do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, for sure. They'll figure it out. I mean, this is only season 2 of Draft League, so we're still trying to figure it out, as a whole. But automatically, overtime's way better than SD, so we're already ahead in the matter of it anyway. So all fair points on that. So our next topic for you guys is going to be talking about like comms, the effectiveness of comms, how important it is to have clear, clean comms and not have everybody, kind of yelling on Discord when you're trying to, get your team going. So first of all, I just want to say I'm big on the comms, and if you played on any squad of mine or if you played on Pizza Rats last night, you would know that I like to run a clean ship where, I'm talking, there's a guy on defense who talks, a couple people on defense keeping me up to date, and then we got a couple spec info people delegated to talk. Obviously, if you're in the game, you can still talk, but it's only if it's important. Like if it's something we need to know, like Captain Axe is saying, hey, get to me, I'm the last one up, or hey, the medic just flanked to me. Sure, that's great. I don't need to know what your cat is having for dinner or what your dog is doing right now. I don't need to know what your HP is or your energy every second. You have to keep it clean, right? You need the information that has to get through. The people who are leading need to be able to speak to the rest of the team. So that's my opinion on it. I know every squad has their like different, ways of running things, but in order to be successful, especially on 10 men, you need to be clear. You need to have like the proper comms. Everyone needs to do the same thing, and in order to do that, it has to be quiet and it has to be one person leading. Kelby, how do you feel about that?
Man, I feel like a lot of people think these guys like Albert and Angelus, like, man, they won all these titles. They're so good at their classes. But I mean, it's the nerdy reads on the game we have and the ability to properly communicate that to 9 other people that I think separate us from like an average mixed team. And I can only say that because I've played so many of these mixes this summer. And a lot of times someone's going to PM me after the mix and be like, yo, that was fucking wild, dude. Awesome job leading. Whereas in other mixed teams, there's just people yelling nonsense like, oh, this guy's at half energy. That stuff doesn't matter. Like, you guys are getting lost in these details that don't matter. If we're sharing a screen together, like we're attacking a base, whether it's 5 versus 5 or 10 man, we're all seeing the same thing, man. And if we're not, that's on the individual for not seeing it. I hate when a medic's like, he's tranked, he's tranked, he's tranked. Dude, I know he's tranked.
Yeah.
I'm right next to you shooting him. Like, I need the comm that says the infil's coming in 2 seconds because that's important. So we've got some of our, classic MS Paint nerdy diagrams that we'll go over a little bit. I want to talk about 10-man offense and defense at A7. So we talked about what some are calling the upset with Raccoons over Leadies, and this is a failed 10-man defense twice. So what we're looking at here on the left side, this is like my picture of an offensive path to attacking A7. The white line is the folks on the vehicle, and I consider them like the tier 1 threat. You've got JTs on a vehicle. You've got Infinite on a hoverboard when he's playing NG. You've got Verb on a hoverboard. You've got all these folks who can move so fast and unexpectedly just show up in the flag room. There's got to be a focus on this. And if you have someone in the game that can focus on this, that's as good as it gets. Like, it's great to have spec info, but if you can get someone to play info, which I'll talk about on the other side of the screen, and call out what's about to happen, man, it's smooth. And so many CTFDL games are decided right here at these choke points. Like, we talk about the white path. This is vehicles. That light pink path you see coming in above that choke, that's the infiltrators of the offense trying to turn. The red is the flush of infantries that are coming in. Most of them are using care by the time it's offense, and they're going to be riding that wall. If you've played mixes with me, like at all in the past year, you've heard me say abort path, and then I'll identify it. I'll tell you abort path low, abort path high. That is the most likely odds of someone coming this way of the base to get to the flags. And that's not when the timer's at 90 seconds. It's deeper. When they're at 30 seconds, and their team on offense is saying, we got one more shot at this, let's go. You've got to think, what would you do in that scenario and play the odds? So again, left side, I don't think it's too complex. It's a bunch of lines and whatnot. But this is, I got vehicle threats on the white. I need someone identifying that on defense. I've got infil threats in the pink. And with the infils come the infantries. In the yellow, that's the medic spamming deluxe. The green is the range of the SL who's actively summoning. But I want to talk about how to defend this. I don't want to expose different ways you can attack and everything. I want to talk about how you can actually defend this. So on the right side of the screen, this is like 101 A7 defense. A7's been around as long as I've played in Twin Peaks. I don't know about anyone else, but we've always run defense that way, and very rarely does it lose if you have your subs in and you're in position. If you look at the very top of the screen, I've got like the 5 X's. This means on defense, stay away from here. I don't want you here. The reason for that is you can get taken out of the defense if you extend too high up. Because again, look back at the critical path we have from the offense. They're coming low with rep charges, enhanced reps on infills. The Packers are flying in with their own rep charges. If you get stuck too high, you're going to get unintentionally repped or intentionally repped out of the critical path, and then you can't contribute. And if you guys watch the VOD from this Elites game, you'll see it over and over. There's people not playing the downside of the choke, which is the abort path, and they're just getting pushed off the screen to where they can't contribute. On the other hand, the red circle I have kind of over my character on that second screenshot, that's where a lot of infils are standing when they're holding a choke. And this is wrong. I don't like infils standing behind this wall and repping, because what they're doing is just pausing the momentum of that incoming offense. I want them moving out to the green choke. And I can quickly talk back to a mix we had at 2 a.m. last night by chance. I'm sitting there on a team with X5, Verb, Attempt, Jewett, Chucky, AEI, Hearthbull, Dark Prince, and that's nice. And this was such a fun game because we talked about comms the whole way. And it was established early on. I'm calling offense, and Jealous in this case, and X5 is going to call my defense for me. All game, man. I'm talking like every 20-second check-ins. You guys good? You guys good? Can we swing this? And the rest of the comms were pretty silent. With the exception of Attempt who's yelling out who knows what. This is a really crisp, calm game. But we get to 10-man, and this flows out like just fairy tale stuff. I'm set up as info. I make sure we get that other info subbed in. In this case, it's our SL, right? That's nice. Played SL for us. I'm telling him as soon as we get the flags out, that's nice. You're info number 2. Let's get up here. I'm telling the team, I need you to come with me because I'm counting. So we look at that green circle. That's winning time. Like if you can push through that green circle, you're going to win the game. And that's what happens in these scenarios. You get past the choke, and then you're actually repulsing the offense straight down. So instead of just deterring them for a moment, you're pushing them down and creating this window for your defensive emphasis heavy to progress further to the choke. So they're getting closer and closer to denying that critical path instead of sitting in the back or sitting in the edge, just firing AC from the back corner. You want to be closer, reduce that projectile time, collapse it. And then as soon as you win that one choke, these games are usually over. It takes a miracle to get them back, because if that defense starts pushing down the hallway, it takes too long to deter a defense gets all this fluidity of the base. Imagine you get 3 DMs, push this out, and you get like a double kill on the infills. Man, your DMs are chasing the SL. They're chasing the medic. They're pushed all the way down to the bottom of the base. There's TD everywhere. You can have your JT, if he's still in, harass the SL. Like, that's winning time. And this stuff just flows out. But it's not a result of like, oh man, this guy's got the sickest shotgun aim. This guy's GL is insane. It's understanding the game script. And for me, the game script's on the left. I know that's what the offense wants to do. This is the path they're going to take, and I'm going to time it to stop it from happening on the right. So again, whether it's spec info, ideally it's an info playing here. It's someone that can make those calls and say, we're going to have an info threat in 4 seconds, because I know he died approximately 6 or 7 seconds ago. If he dies again, the next threat is the person on the vehicle. Because you just know, like, there's such an easy script to offense on 10-man. Offense on 10-man is like, all right, let's group up. Yep, get our vehicles, and let's go. You've got to be thinking that on defense. Don't just be thinking, push, 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 we got numbers. Like, go one step further and identify what's really going to happen here. What can stop us? We saw deep attaches coming in from Raccoons because this team, Leadies in this case, they weren't playing the tight chokes. Like, they were floating too high up. They had fighters getting pushed out of position. At one point, I think Imp is deep in the flag room. This guy's a heavy. He's paper, but there's only 4 people shooting him for a couple seconds. He gets an attach from a Kara Imp, and that guy gets the abort. That should never happen. But wrong position on defense. You're not taking control of the chokes as you should be. You're not playing the projected path. I think if you fix that, this game ends differently. A lot of games could end differently. The F4 game was close also. I talked about breakdance landing a clutch strength. Like, there's so much room for improvement on these 10-mans, and I'm hoping we get to see that as the league goes along.
Yeah, I agree 100% in everything you just said. And the biggest thing that you said is that I hope that people who are listening to this, like, we had almost 200 views on the last podcast. There's only 80-something people playing in the league right now. So I would imagine that 95 or higher percentage of people playing in this league right now are listening to these podcasts. And you guys should do this, all right? If you listen to this and next week you don't do this, well, you're never going to win. It's just well to stop showing up now, because this is what you need to do to win. This is how you play 10 men in the space. It's how you play 10 men in every base.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, D7's got a couple different things, but this is how you do it. It's the same every time. Like Kelby said, the offense are grouping, they're waiting for their vehicles, they're waiting for their infos, and they're pushing. You have to counteract that, and this is exactly how you do it. And what we've seen happen last night in the space is the exact opposite of what Kelby has described here and has on these MS Paint diagrams for you guys. To the point where the red X's, like he said, there was people up there all the time. The infos weren't repping at the first choke properly, if at all.
Yeah.
You know, you need them there. You need communication on who's repping first, so on and so on. So take this into account. Share it with your team. Captains, I know you're listening to this podcast. Share this with your team. Even if you clip this or share it at this timestamp of the 10-man thing, do it. We want to see better games, man. I'm playing in this league, and I want to see better games. It's like I told Axie before our match yesterday. I hope Breakdance shows up because I don't want to win without a full lineup. Like, it doesn't mean as much to me. I want to win when you're at your strongest, and then that way, you know I did the best I could do. I know our team is better, and that's what I want. So just listen to what he's saying. You know, practice it if you have to. In a private arena, I'm sure that you can get another team to practice this with you and just do 10-man drills, whatever it takes to get it down. But this is what you guys have to do. So hopefully you take away from what he said and you start putting it into effect. You got 3 weeks left, so, you know, lots of time to do it, right?
Yeah, and just going one step further, if there's someone out there that can do this better, just share with us, man. Like, I'm all for the ideas. I love this stuff. I love looking at the angles of the game, the different number counts you can make. Like on the right diagram, I've got this kind of class coordination for the non-colorblind where you can see like, yeah, the color I'm associating with the arrow is the class. So I'm assuming you have two heavies in. Maybe you're in a power offense, you're D heavy and you're O heavy. They can't go any higher than those blue lines. If they do, they're getting repped out of the play. Same thing with the infantries. If they go too high towards those X's, they're repped out of the play. The medic, that's the medic looking to trank along that bottom wall. And again, you're on my mix teams. You're going to hear me calling out bottom wall's the abort, bottom wall's the abort. That's because I've identified the vehicle's dead. There's no bounce coming top. No one's swinging wide when there's 10 seconds left. Try to get an abort. They're riding bottom. They're spamming reps. Like that's where the focus needs to go. So again, you don't need to be the most skilled player, but you need to understand like spatial awareness. Where can I best stand to remain in the play when this chaotic tornado initiates for 90 seconds? How can I keep making an impact? Because every second counts in a 10-man. You get the last second abort, the last second kill. That's the difference in like winning a championship and coming in second.
Yep, it actually is. And if you guys are like unsure of anything or if you have any questions, like reach out. Both myself and Kelby will, you know, help you or answer any questions you guys have. If you're looking to get a little, you know, more information on it or whatever, reach out. I mean, we're all here to teach you guys. That's why we're doing this. We want everyone to get better at the game. We want the competition to get better. So, I mean, by all means, if you have any questions, ask. You know, the worst you could do is not ask, right?
Yeah, agreed with that. Open book. If anyone wants to talk about it, challenge it, just whatever you want to do, I'm available. You can find me in Discord.
All right, so that'll conclude our little diagram here for you guys on 10 men. Up next, what we're going to do is just go over the matches for next week. So week 2, November 10th. Kelby, you take it away for us.
Yeah, again, not predicting winners on here. That's not what I'm kind of in the business for. But I'll just give you a little preview of what I think the match may look like. So we're going to start off with Pizza Rats home squad against Raccoons. Mecha Squad versus Posty Squad. Both these guys won week 1. We talked about Pizza Rats kind of got their foot on the gas running a power offense and kept it there until the game ended. Posty Squad technically didn't win in the 5v5 offense, but showed the stronger 10-man twice in their game against Leedies. So I like, and hopefully the schedule fits this. That hopefully that's the first game. No guarantees because captain availability, but I'd like to kick the night off with that. I thought that Posty's defense was surprisingly sturdy for long periods of time against their game with Leedies, where they're sitting in D6, and we talked about like SSJ from who knows where. Like they just found this kid 20 years later. Like, yeah, I'll hop on and call for you. Like, okay. So I think it'll be cool to see that defense go again. I'm going to be interested to watch. Is there a noticeable difference in the 10-man deployments, mainly from the defensive side, following the release of this podcast? Are we going to see better organization? Are we going to see, better info play, quicker subs, positional, proper push outs? Like, I don't want to keep seeing these infos sitting in the flag room with 60 seconds left saying, I got flag room choke. Like, that's not how you win. You got to get out because this turns eventually. Once your rets go down, you're disadvantaged on defense because the other team's getting summons, you're not getting summons. So I hope we see better 10-man play in this one. Moving down to the next game, we've got Cuck versus Leedies. I'll be honest, Cuck did not show us a ton to get excited about. We talked about they lost their third round pick. He's not available. They can deploy Chucky in different ways. Maybe next week they come out and say, look, we just couldn't figure out the JT thing with the talent we have surrounding it. Maybe we just come out pure power from the start. Maybe we like the way it looked when Mites was playing JT with a heavy against A5. It depends on the bases and everything, but I think we can expect to see some different offense than that 3M JT offense we saw to play most of the game this first week. Beyond that, Leedies, again, team is pretty loaded with skirmishers of raw talent. They haven't made that leap to consider themselves as like dominant CTFers, and they'll all humbly say that. So there's potential of them learning throughout the week, even like taking advice from the leadership they have, whether it's ZMN, Sov, Bonds, whoever. And this could turn into a really close matchup. The different lineups that could be deployed. I don't think we've seen a whole lot yet. Like I talked about, where's the hot swapping from Sov and ZMN? We saw it last league. Where is it? Maybe we get to see that come out and their squad looks a lot different week 2. I don't know. But yeah, ultimately, I'm going to be looking on this team or this matchup to say what's different on offense because neither offenses were really pushing and dominating the way I thought maybe they could. So, what adjustments have they made throughout this week in between, and can they look better the second time?
Well,
Last but not least, we've got Leedies versus Scissors. Leedies is on the double schedule for this week, so they've got to play twice, similar to Axis did the first week. Depending on the schedule details, Axie's squad might even get the upper hand of watching Leedies play their first game of the night against Cuck. We talked about how Axis acknowledged Mites for, identifying some things in their game and saying we can do this better in the second by making this transition. Can they get that scheduling upper hand, find something in the first game of Leedies, and then prepare for it on the Scissor side prior to the second game? We'll see. uh, the tendencies they have to, play defense passively. Are we going to see an adjustment to that from the Scissors if Leedies deploys a strong power offense and it's not a long swing game like we saw in game 1? Can they just get the upper hand? Do they run back the JT heavy? My personal favorite suddenly. I mean, there's a lot to see here. I like the Scissor squad flexibility a lot. It helped obviously seeing them play 2 games in the first week, so there's more evidence. But I think they can do a lot with the squad. And then last but not least, Leedies, they need to come into this match, assuming it's their last match of the night, already having a win. Because if they drop the game to Cuck and then come into here, they're 0-2 facing what I think most would consider a better squad than Cuck, who would have beat them the same night. They don't want to fall to 0-3, obviously, in the first couple weeks. So hopefully they can find a win somewhere in here. And yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. It's a results oriented business. People talk about, man, it's fun playing with this person. It's fun playing with that person. I'm here for results. We talked about communication and whatnot. I think winning is fun. So I was talking with my buddy Doc the other night, from CTFX, and now he's Grump giving spec info to people. He's like, man, Kelb, just listening to you talk, it's giving me like PTSD of you yelling at us in CTFX as teenagers. I'm like, yeah, some things don't change. Like, I'm here for the results. Let's party when we win the game. But man, clean up your comms during these games. Let the leaders lead and, follow accordingly. That's what I'm hoping happens this week.
yeah, me too. And I'm very happy that Leedies is playing 2 games this week because, in my opinion, that was like the biggest upset for me. Like, I thought they were going to win. And then it turns out, they lose 10-man twice, like you said. So I want to see, like, game 1 for number one thing is, did you make the changes throughout the week? Did you identify the problems? And are you going to put it into effect game 1 to see your 10-man change to where it needs to be? Like you said, the subs got to go in. The classes got to be changed. The things that went wrong have to be identified. Is your 10-man getting any stronger? Is the leadership, bringing down the, information needed to the newer skirmisher guys in this league? And, they get 2 games to try to, I guess, perfect it this week before it gets into week 3 and 4, which is when it really matters. So that's one thing that I like, that I want to see. And also just to touch on the time slots, I don't know if it's going to be the same time slots as last week where it's 9, 10, and 11 Eastern, but Pizza Rats and Raccoons is at 9 Eastern, so it should be the first match.
Yeah, sounds good. And, just a heads up to all the squads. I'm not participating in this draft league. I didn't participate in the first one either. If you need some help throughout the week, like whether you want to run ideas, you want me to NT or like help your offense, your defense, your 10-man, just reach out to me. I was able to help a couple squads this past week with a couple things they need help with. They were short on players for practices. I'm happy to help. Again, it's results oriented. There's no friendship clicks here where I'm going to leak your secrets to Albert, who's on another squad. I want the competitive games. I want to see what happens. So if you need help, reach out. I'm available.
Yeah, and I can confirm that Kelby is not helping my squad. He's helping me, if anything, with just like how I play and where I haven't played in so long, like just a couple things that I've done wrong, but he's not giving us spec info in games, and he hasn't been to any of our practices or anything like that. So he is definitely one of the like most solid competitors in this league. He doesn't even take spec info in mixes. So like if we're on a Discord and someone's like, "Yo, you guys want spec info?" He's like, "Shut up, like we don't want it."
Yeah,
So
it pisses me off.
yeah, he's definitely like he keeps his integrity in these leagues and stuff. So you can definitely trust him with that.
Yeah, no apologies to Joe, who's notorious for giving spec info and mixes. Like, hey Joe, you want to shut the hell up and let him play? You want to see who the better team is? You want to keep cheating? Oh, Kelbs, I'm just trying to help. Yeah, not interested. Like, let's see who's better, man. Let's make it about competition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
I
guys need
agree
help,
with that.
reach out.
Yeah, like he said, if you guys need help, reach out. And I kind of agree with what he's saying. With like, not so much in the mix. Like I'm not as heavy in it as the mix as you are, because it's just for fun, anyways. Like who cares? But in the actual games, like there's no cheating, or like he's not gonna leak info to me. Like if he, so much as I can confirm that he found out something about Axie Squad that was happening, that he would not even give me a sniff of what was going on. And not that I wanted it, but he was like, all right. He even had to tell Joe, like, Joe, don't fucking open your mouth about this, because it could change how things happen, right? So he's definitely like strong on that aspect. So definitely reach out to him.
Yeah, let's also make mixes great again. Stop giving spec info.
So with that, Kelby, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think I've rambled enough, and I'm looking forward to seeing some adjustments made. I just want to see the level of play continue to go up. That's fun for me as someone that's into the details, and I just want to see people get better. The better you play, the more fun you have, the higher chance you have of winning. So good luck to everyone, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. So with that, guys, we're gonna wrap up the episode here. If you guys, again, if anyone's looking to get on the podcast, please reach out. We'll do our best to get you on here. It is filling up very quickly, so we can't make any promises. It's only a 4-week season, and we have to do our breakdowns every week as well. So we can't 100% say we'll get you on here, but we'll do our best if anyone is actually interested and has some good stuff to bring to the podcast. So again, reach out. Kelby, thank you so much for being on here again and hosting this with me. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to everyone who's listening to this and giving us feedback. And those we've gotten so many messages of people asking when the next one's coming out and so on and so on. So we do appreciate you guys listening. We're doing it for you guys, so we're happy you guys are enjoying it. So until the next one, guys, have a great week of matches, and we'll see you next week.